want you to think about one thing, and it really changed the way that I approached telesales. That first 30 seconds is not about proving your value. They're about earning permission to continue the conversation. And that is your only job. I don't want you to explain anything. I don't want you to rush into the presentation. I don't want to answer questions that your future client hasn't asked you yet. I want you to earn the first 30 seconds, because once you've earned those first 30 seconds, that's when you really have the opportunity to start to build trust. And trust is what eventually will lead to your application.
Life with Brian, the Six Figure Agent Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Life with Brian, the Six Figure Agent Podcast. I'm Brian Jackson, and as always, my goal is simple: to help you become the kind of agent who consistently earns six figures by serving people well, developing your skills, and treating this business like a profession. So if you've been following along since episode 1, you've probably noticed something. That we are building this podcast one layer at a time. So episode 1, we talked about thinking like a six-figure producer. We discussed how your income is directly connected to your mindset, to your habits, and to the standards that you are setting for yourself. Episode 2, we broke down your schedule. Right? We broke your day into 3 blocks: the morning power block, the admin block, and the appointment block. We talked about protecting your calendar because your calendar ultimately determines your paycheck. I gave you 2 challenges. If you're in the middle of those challenges, comment below. Let me know how they're going. Now it's time to take the next step. Today, we are talking about something that every telesales agent deals with dozens of times every single day. And that is the first 30 seconds of any phone call. And I want to start with a statement that may surprise some of you. Most sales that you lose are not lost during the presentation. They are lost before you get to your presentation. I want you to slow down, and I want you to think about it. I mean, how many times have you called somebody this week only to hear the objections of, "I'm not interested. I'm really busy. Hey, I already have some life insurance in place." Or, "Take me off your list, don't call me anymore." And then there's the simple click, conversation over. No needs analysis. There was no discovery that took place. There was no opportunity that you got to help that person that made that request. There was no chance for you to build trust to be able to get to that presentation. You never made it to the part where your knowledge of what you had mattered at all. And I think that's why today's episode is so important. Because if you can't buy that first 30 seconds, you're never going to earn the first 30 minutes. I think one of the biggest misconceptions in this business is believing that closing is the most important sales skill. And I don't want you to take that the wrong way. Closing is very important. But you can't reach that close if you never get to have a conversation. Right? You can't overcome objections from someone who hung up in the first 10 to 15 seconds. You can't educate someone who never gave you permission to speak. The first 30 seconds determine whether you even get the opportunity to demonstrate your value. So today, I want to challenge the way you think about all of your phone calls, right? Your goal when somebody first answers the phone is not to make a sale. I want you to think about that. Slow down and really think about that. Your goal when they answer the phone is not to make a sale. Your goal is to earn the next 30 seconds. That's it. And I think when you start to understand that something really incredible happens. That pressure that you're putting on yourself comes off. Instead of trying to convince someone to buy insurance in your opening, you're simply trying to earn enough trust and curiosity for them to keep listening. That's a completely different mindset. And it's a mindset that's going to change the way you look at your phone call. And a truth that it took me a little longer than I wanted to admit to learn is people, they're not deciding whether they want life insurance in the first 30 seconds. Right? They're deciding whether they want to keep talking to you. And I want you to think about your own life, your day-to-day life. When your phone rings and you don't recognize the number, what are the questions that go through your head? Who is this? What do they even want? Is it going to be worth my time to answer the phone? Right? Your prospect, they're thinking the exact same thing. They're sitting there hoping a salesperson calls them. Are they? No. They're trying to figure out why they should stay on the line when you call because you're probably not a phone call they're looking forward. And that's why your opening in that first 30-second matters so much. Now, in that first 30 seconds, where a lot of agents get in trouble is they want to impress people immediately. So they start talking and talking and talking. Then they'll tell the prospect everything about the company. They'll tell them everything about the type of policy that we're going to look at today. Everything about why they are calling before the prospect has even decided to stay on the phone. And to me, that's backwards. I want you to imagine walking into a room, introducing yourself to someone, and before they can even respond, you spend the next 3 minutes telling them your life story. How awkward would that feel? Right? Talking on the phone is no different. The opening that you use should create comfort, not pressure. It should create curiosity, not resistance. And it should create some type of connection and not a sales pitch. One of the best pieces of advice that I ever heard working around other people doing this was this: don't try to sound like you're trying to sell something. Now, I'm not telling you to hide why you're calling. It doesn't mean that you're going to be deceptive. It means that you sound like a normal human being. Too many agents have what we call a sales voice or a customer service voice. And anybody listening to this knows exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's, "Hi, Mr. Johnson. This is Brian with ABC Insurance. How are you doing today?" Right? Nobody talks like that in real life. It sounds forced. It sounds rehearsed. And most importantly, It sounds like every other salesperson that they've ever tried to avoid. Right? Instead of that, I want you to imagine that you're calling someone that you've known for years. Your tone is going to change. You're going to slow down. You're going to sound relaxed. You are going to sound more confident. And confidence is quiet. Desperation is very loud. And prospects, people you call on the phone, your future clients, they can hear the difference. So I want to ask you a question. Have you ever listened to two different agents using the exact same script? One agent is booking appointments all day long. They are closing policies all day long. And the other one, using the exact same script, struggles to keep people on the phone. Why? They're using the same words. So it's not about the words you're using, it's about the delivery you use in those words, right? The confident agent knows that they're calling to help someone. That struggling agent, where we've all been, is hoping that they're calling somebody that's not going to hang up. Prospects hear the belief in your words before they hear your words. And that's why your mindset in this really, really matters. In episode 1, when we talked about mindset, we talked about how your identity drives your behavior. And if you see yourself as somebody that is interrupting people, you're going to sound apologetic when they get on the phone. But if you see yourself as someone bringing valuable information to families who asked for it, you're going to sound confident. Right? Nothing about the script has changed. It's your mindset and your belief in what you're doing that has changed. Now, I want you to think about one thing, and it really changed the way that I approached telesales. Right? The first 30 seconds is not about proving your value. They are about earning permission to continue the conversation. And that is your only job. I don't want you to explain anything. I don't want you to rush into the presentation. I don't want to answer questions that your future client hasn't asked you yet. I want you to earn the first 30 seconds. Because once you've earned those first 30 seconds, that's when you really have the opportunity to start to build trust. And trust is what eventually will lead to your application. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is something that most agents spend very, very little time practicing. And that is their voice, their tonality. And I know that sounds really strange. Most agents, they obsess over scripts. They'll spend hours memorizing exactly what they're going to say. They'll underline key phrases in their script. Um, they'll begin to highlight important questions that they should ask. Right? We start to practice objection handlers, and all of that is valuable. I'm not saying it's not, but what I've learned after years of conversation is people are going to hear your confidence long before they hear your words. So think about that. Have you ever had someone tell you on the phone when you've called them, you sound very nervous? They didn't know what you were thinking. They couldn't see your face. They couldn't read your body language. They simply heard something in your voice. The opposite is also true. If they can hear when you're nervous, they can hear your confidence. They can hear when you're being sincere. They can hear when you're excited. They can also hear your kindness. Your voice will communicate emotion before your words communicate information. And that's why two agents can read the exact same script and have completely different results. One is booking appointments all day long. The other can't get past their introduction. They're introducing themselves, click. They can't get through it. And the difference isn't what they said because they're saying the same thing, it's how they said it. One of the biggest mistakes new agents make when they first get on the phone is they're speaking way too fast. And I understand why. I remember being there. My first dials, I was nervous. Um, I want to get through my script before somebody interrupts me. So I was going to rush through it and get through it as fast as I can. And I'm going to try to squeeze every important detail into that first 20 seconds. Now, the problem with that is when you rush, you sound rushed. I want to think about the people in your life who always, regardless of what's going on around them, seem confident. Do they talk a mile a minute? Not usually. Because confident people are comfortable with silence. They're comfortable pausing. They're comfortable letting a conversation breathe. And that's exactly how you should sound on the phone. So here's something I really want you to try. The next time you make a call, slow down by about 20% of your normal. It will feel awkward. I promise you that. You will think in your mind that you are talking too slowly. But I promise to that future client that you're on the phone with, you are going to sound very calm. You're going to sound very professional. You're going to sound like you are in control of the situation. And I want you to remember that the person on the other end of your phone doesn't know your script. They don't know what you're planning to say next. You do not have to race through the call. Another habit that quietly hurts agents is filling every pause. I am guilty of this myself. I use words like uh, you know. If you've listened to this podcast, you've heard me say right 7,000 times. Words like basically, kind of. These are words that we sneak into our conversations when we're thinking faster than we're speaking. The problem is that those words make us sound very uncertain. Imagine that you're calling someone to ask them for financial advice. Which one would you rather hear? Well, um, I kind of think this might be the best option for you. Or, based on what you shared with me and what is available to you, this is my recommendation. Which person sounds like the professional? Right? Confidence is not arrogance. Confidence is clarity, and clarity creates trust. Now, something that completely changed my own phone calls is smiling while you're talking. I know it sounds crazy, it sounds ridiculous because most of us, prospect can't see you. So why am I smiling? Because smiling changes your voice. So while you're listening here, go ahead and test it. Say the words, "Good morning, how are you today?" First without smiling. Now I want you to say the exact same sentence while you're smiling. "Good morning. How are you doing today?" Do you hear the difference? Your voice becomes warmer. Your voice becomes more inviting. Your voice makes you more approachable. People may not see your smile, but they can absolutely hear your smile. Another thing that I learned that made a huge difference in my conversations is I stopped trying to sound like a salesperson. Like, sound like yourself. When I first started in sales, I thought I had to be somebody else. I thought successful agents had a special voice, a special personality that they only use when talking to clients. This special way of speaking. So I tried to imitate those people. You want to know what happened to me? I sounded really fake, and people can tell when you're performing. They can tell when you are reading instead of talking. The best agents I've ever met don't sound super polished. They sound genuine. They sound comfortable. They sound like somebody you'd enjoy sitting across the table from over a cup of coffee. That's what you're aiming for. Professional, but natural. That's it. You sound prepared, but conversational. You sound very confident, but you do not sound pushy. One exercise I recommend to every new agent is recording yourself. I know nobody likes hearing their own voice. The first time you'll listen back, you'll probably grin, but you'll notice every awkward pause. You'll notice every time you use a filler word. Every place that you sounded uncertain, you're going to hear it. And that's exactly why you should do it. Athletes watch game film. Quarterbacks don't just throw the football on Sunday hoping that they're going to get better. They watch every single play. They study every single mistake. They identify every single missed opportunity because they're professionals. Why should your sales be any different? If you are serious about becoming a six figure producer, you have to become a student of your own performance. While you're listening, you should ask yourself questions. Did I sound rushed through that? Did I interrupt the client as they were speaking? Did I actually listen when they were talking? Does it sound like I was smiling? Did I sound confident? And the most important question, would I buy from myself? And the last question is one that I ask myself often. Would I enjoy talking to me? Would I trust myself? Would I stay on the phone if I received this phone call? And if that answer is no, I don't want you to get discouraged. I don't want you to get upset with yourself. I want you to get better because your improvement starts with honesty. Now, let's talk about one more thing that separates average agents from elite agents, and that is energy. Notice I didn't say excitement. There's a huge difference between energy and excitement. Some agents think energy means talking louder, talking faster, being overly enthusiastic about everything they say. But that's not energy, that is intensity. Real energy comes from the belief in what you are doing. When you genuinely believe that you're helping families protect the people they love, that belief naturally comes in your voice. You don't have to manufacture enthusiasm, it should already be there. I can usually tell within the first 10 seconds whether an agent believes in what they are selling or if they're doing it just for a commission. Because if they don't believe in what they're selling, the prospect isn't going to believe in that product either. So when you're on the phone, I want you to remember why you got into this business. Maybe you got into this because you saw the financial side of it. You wanted to provide a better life for your family. I know agents that got into it because life insurance helped their own family at one point. Maybe it's because you've seen what happens when someone doesn't have coverage. Whatever your reason is, stay connected to it because that purpose creates a passion, and that passion will create a conviction. People aren't going to buy from you because your script is perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect script. If there was, we would all be using it. They buy because they believe that you believe in the product that you're selling. So next week, I don't want you to change your script. I want you to change your delivery. Slow down. Take a breath. Smile before every single call. Sit up straight in your seat. Take a deep breath. Speak with confidence. Listen more than you talk. And remember, you're not calling to bother someone. You're calling because someone on the other end of that phone needs exactly what you have to offer. Now I want to get very practical with you guys. Because I know there are people out there listening and you are thinking, Brian, just tell me what to say. And I get that. When I first started in sales, I wanted that magic script. I wanted the bulletproof script. And I thought if I got enough of them, there had to be a perfect combination of words that would make everybody, regardless of who you were, stop, listen, and buy. But after years of phone calls, what I've learned is that there isn't a magic script. There's no bulletproof script that works every time, but there are proven principles. And the script matters, but how you use the script matters even more. So today, instead of telling you to memorize my words, I want to teach you the structure behind a great opening. Because once you understand the structure, you'll be able to sound natural instead of sounding like you're reading. And here's what every great opening should accomplish: it should answer the four questions in the prospect that they are asking in their mind. Who the heck are you? Why the heck are you calling me? Why should I stay on the phone? And what happens next? If you answer those four questions calmly and confidently, you have dramatically increased your chances of having that real conversation. Let's break that down. Step one is you have to introduce yourself like a human being. Now, this seems very obvious, but it's amazing how many agents skip over this step. Or worse, they turn that introduction into an announcement. They turn it into an announcement. Good morning, this is Brian Jackson with ABC Insurance Services. Slow down. You're introducing yourself. You're not announcing the winning lottery numbers. You're not announcing yourself in a stadium. I like something much more conversational, much more natural. Hey, John, this is Brian Jackson. That's it. It's simple. It's natural. It's how you introduce yourself to somebody you're sitting across the table from. Right? It's professional. Notice I didn't immediately launch into my company history or tell them everything that I do. People don't need your resume in the first 10 seconds. They need to know who's calling. Step two, you're going to give them context, right? One reason people become defensive is because they have no idea why you're calling. And that unknown creates some resistance. So completely remove the mystery. If you're calling someone who requested information, tell them, hey, John, I'm calling because you recently requested some information about protecting your family with life insurance. Or, hey, John, I'm just following up on the information you requested regarding your retirement options. That's not pressure. That is contact. You're reminding them why the conversation exists in the first place. Now, every once in a while, somebody's going to say, I really don't remember filling anything out. I hear it every day, multiple times a day as I'm making my calls. Of course it's going to happen. Right? It's probably happened to you today. If you're following the blocks, it happened in your power block. Right? Don't argue with the person that doesn't remember filling something out. Don't say, yes, you did, because that immediately creates conflict. Instead, you're going to smile. You're going to say something like, hey, I completely understand. Most people request information while they're in the middle of something else, and by the time I call, life has happened. That's actually why I wanted to reach out. Now, do you see the difference there? You didn't embarrass them. You didn't accuse them of filling something out that they don't remember filling out. You simply lowered that conflict. You lowered that tension. And people really appreciate that. The next thing is earning permission. Right? And this one phrase has helped me more than anything over the years. John, did I catch you at an okay time? Notice I'm not asking them, hey, do you have a few minutes? Because when you ask that question, people instinctively are going to say no. Instead, I'm simply checking whether I've interrupted something important. If they say yes, great, fantastic, move forward, keep going. But if they say they're in the middle of something, respect it. Don't try to push a time crunch on what you're doing. One of the fastest ways to build trust is by respecting somebody's time. Right? If they say, "Hey, I'm in the middle of the doctor's office, whatever it is," you can simply say, "Hey, I completely understand. What time works better for you today?" It's simple. It's professional. It's respectful. Sometimes that small amount of respect is what separates you from every other salesperson who's tried to force a conversation. Now, let's talk about one of the objections every telesales agent hears. I'm busy. I think the first thing you need to understand about this objection is very simple. Sometimes they really are. Uh, Not every objection is a smokescreen, and we're taught that early that it's just an objection. You have to get through it, but people have jobs. People have kids. They have doctor's appointments. They have things going on in their lives. Maybe they have meetings that they're trying to get to. Right? Life doesn't stop simply because you called their phone. They have things they're moving towards. Don't take that personally. If they're busy, acknowledge it. Don't try to skirt around it. Say something like, hey, I understand. It sounds like you've got a lot going on. Uh, would later this afternoon or tomorrow morning work better? And again, I want you to really notice something. I'm not arguing. I didn't try to squeeze in just 30 seconds. I respected their answer. And that respect creates respect. Many prospects will actually apologize because you respected their schedule. Now, I want to look at another objection that we hear often. Right? That objection of, I'm really not interested. And this one scares a lot of agents. It used to scare me. But let me ask you something. They're not interested in what? I want you to think about it. Normally, this comes up, you've barely said a word. They really don't know why you're calling. They really don't know what you're offering. So, how can they already know that they're not interested? Most of the time, they're not rejecting your product. They're rejecting what they assume is just another sales. And that is a big difference. So instead of becoming defensive, I want you to stay relaxed. You might say, "Hey, I completely understand. Most people feel that way before they know why I'm. Can you let me take 20 seconds to explain why I reached out, and then you can decide whether it makes sense to continue?" Right? You're staying calm. You're not putting pressure on the call. You are not arguing with the person that said, "Hey, I'm not interested." You're simply asking for permission to explain. Now, sometimes they're still going to say no, and that's fine. Right? Not every lead that you have is going to become a client. Right? This goal is not perfection because you're never going to be perfect at this. Your goal is improvement. And if you can save one or two extra conversations every day, imagine what that looks like over the course of a year. That gives you hundreds of additional opportunities, dozens of additional applications, and thousands in additional commissions. Right? Those small improvements create massive results over time. Now, let's assume your opening worked. They stayed on the phone. Here is where a lot of agents make their next mistake. They immediately start presenting their product. I'm telling you not to do that. Your presentation should never come before discovery. I want you to imagine walking into your doctor's office, and before your doctor asks you a single question, he just starts writing out a prescription. Would that inspire confidence in that doctor? Of course not. The best agents, the best advisors, they ask questions before giving answers. And that's what you need to be doing. Transition naturally from your opening into discovery. Hey, before we get too far into this, would you mind if I ask you just a couple questions so I can better understand the situation you're in? How different would that feel? You're not pitching to them, you're learning about their situation. You're not assuming that this is a product that's going to work. You're discovering what it is that they need. Great salespeople are curious. They're going to ask questions. Average salespeople, they're in a hurry. That curiosity will build trust because honestly, people enjoy talking about themselves. Ask about their family, ask about their goals, ask why they requested this information, and ask them what concerned them the most when they were requesting information. And then when you ask a question, listen. Now, you're not listening just to respond to the question. You are listening to understand what they're saying. And some of the best closes I've ever had happened because the client gave me the answer during discovery. During discovery, your client will tell you exactly what matters to them. All I had to do was connect the solution to the problem they had already described. That is why discovery is so powerful. You're no longer convincing, you're confirming. Your opening does not have to be perfect to get to the discovery, but it has to be genuine. People will forgive you for imperfect words. They will not forgive you for insincerity. You have to speak with confidence. You have to lead with curiosity. You have to respect your client's time. You have to ask good questions. And remember that the objective is not to impress people with your knowledge. It's to make them comfortable enough to keep talking to you. Because every application you've ever written started with one simple thing: a conversation. Now, if you have stayed with me to this point, I hope the one thing has become very clear: that mastering the first 30 seconds isn't about finding the perfect script or saying the perfect words. It's about becoming the kind of professional who can consistently earn the opportunity to have meaningful conversations. So I want you to think about everything that we've covered today. Right? We talked about why the first 30 seconds determine the rest of the call. We talked about how your tonality will communicate far more than your words will sometimes. We talked about slowing down 20% slower, smiling while you're talking, sounding like yourself, and asking questions and discovering what their issue is before you provide them with a solution. I want to leave you with what I think is the most important part of this entire episode. That is practice. Because the truth is, you don't rise to the level of your intentions. You rise to the level of your preparation. Have you ever watched a professional athlete after a big game? I know us as fans, we see the touchdowns, right? We see the home runs that are hit. We see the game-winning shot drained. What we don't see are the thousands of hours that happen long before game day. We don't see the early mornings. We don't see this repetition. We don't see the drills they're running every single day. We don't see the mistakes that they've made in those drills. We don't see the corrections that their coaches have given them or that they've found themselves. Champions don't become champions because they're under a bright light. Those bright lights simply reveal the work that they have put in. Being a sales professional is exactly the same thing. Your opening should not be something you're trying to remember. It should become something that feels natural. Not because you've memorized it, but because you've practiced it so many times that you can focus on the person instead of focusing on your next sentence. One of the best habits I ever developed was role playing. And I know as you're listening, there is a lot of you that just rolled your eyes. Right? Role playing kind of sucks. It's not exciting. If you're role playing with somebody you don't know, it can be very awkward. It can be very uncomfortable. But I want to ask you something. Would you rather feel uncomfortable practicing, or would you rather feel uncomfortable because you're getting hung up on all day? I will take that first option every time. Some of my biggest breakthroughs I've had as an agent happened during role play sessions. And it's not because somebody handed me a new script. Right? It's because they pointed out things I couldn't hear myself. Maybe I was rushing and didn't realize it. Maybe I was interrupting way too often that they weren't even done talking. Maybe I sounded a little unsure about the product that I was offering. Uh, Maybe I didn't have the belief. Maybe I wasn't listening to the things they were saying. And sometimes that smallest adjustment will create your biggest improvement. Another habit that is mandatory is reviewing your own calls. Now, I know not everyone has the ability to record calls. And depending on where you live or who you work with, there may be rules and regulations you have to follow on what calls you can record and what calls you can't, what parts of the calls you can record and what parts that you can't. But if you're allowed to record your calls, use that opportunity. If you are not, take detailed notes immediately after each conversation while it's still fresh. Either way, make reviewing your performance part of that daily routine. Don't just ask yourself, did I make this sale? Right? We talked about asking good questions. Ask yourself good questions. Hey, did I build rapport on this phone call? When I was talking to John, did I sound confident? Did I interrupt my client too often? Did I ask enough questions? Of those questions I was asking, did I actually listen to the answer? Did I earn the next 30 seconds? And remember, as we've said before, you don't control every outcome. Sometimes people simply aren't ready. They're going to get the satisfaction of asking for the information without doing anything. Sometimes the timing just isn't right. That if you would have called a week later, they would have been ready, but the timing's not good. Sometimes life just gets in the way. The one thing you can control is preparation. You can control your attitude. And you can always control whether you're improving or not. And that's where sales professionals separate themselves from agents. Average, an average agent will end the day and say, man, I hope tomorrow is better than today. An elite agent, a professional, they prepare for tomorrow so they know they're going to be better. And that's a huge difference. Hope is not a strategy. A hope is a wish, but a preparation is a plan. The big thing with this, though, as you're trying to improve, don't improve 10 things at once because you will get worse. Pick one. Maybe this week you listen to your calls and you realize you're going way too fast because that's where most agents start. Maybe this week your focus should be slowing down. That's it. On every single call, slow down 20% slower. And next week, Maybe you realize I'm not asking great questions here. I need to ask better questions. So focus on that. Right? The week after that, work on your transition from the opening to discovery to presentation to close. Right? And then work on your objection handling. And then work on your closing. Right? Those small improvements compound over time. I want you to think of it like building a house. You don't show up on day one expecting to move in by dinner. You have to start with the foundation. And then you have to put up the framing. And then you have to put up the roof. And then you have to put up the wiring. And every step you take builds on the one before it. Your sales career will work the same way. Master one thing and then build the next. Eventually, you're going to look back and realize you're having conversations today that would have intimidated you a year ago. And it's not because you got lucky, it's because you grew. I want to encourage you to stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. It's a trap that we fall into. That you're brand new and you're comparing yourselves to somebody who's been doing this for 10 years. And I think that's one of the worst things social media has done is convince us that everybody else has it figured out. You're going to get on your group chats and you're going to see agents posting production numbers. You're going to see agents posting pictures of these incentive trips that they won, their big commission deposits, the awards that they have got, the recognition that they've received. And those things are awesome. Don't get me wrong. You should celebrate the people who are around you who are winning. But I don't want you to let someone else's success convince you that you're failing. I promise you, you have no idea how many calls they made before they got to that point where it clicked. You don't know how many hangups they had to go through. You don't know how many times they stumbled through an opening before it finally clicked the correct way to do it. Everybody starts somewhere. The difference is that those successful agents that you see that are making all those posts, they don't quit before they improve. They stay in the game long enough, they improve enough for that experience to replace uncertainty. So if you're a brand new agent or an agent that is struggling, maybe you've been around for a little bit, but you're struggling, I want to encourage you. Don't expect perfection, expect progress. And if you have been in the business for years, here is my challenge. Don't become complacent. Complacency kills, it's a trap of your mind. Your experience doesn't automatically create excellence, but intentional improvement does. The day that you wake up and you believe that you have nothing left to learn in this industry is the day that your growth slows down and you will start to regress. The best producers that I know are students. They are still reading, they're still practicing, still listening to their calls at the end of the day. They are still going to training. They are still asking questions. Why, you ask? Because they understand something that most people don't. Growth is never accidental. Growth is intentional. Now, before we wrap up today, I want to give you another challenge. For the next 7 days, I want you to become obsessed with a single thing. And it's not writing applications, it's not paying attention to your commissions, it's not watching your production. It's conversations. Your goal for the next 7 days is to become excellent at earning the next 30 seconds. Every morning before you start dialing, before you start that power block, I want you to spend 5 minutes practicing your opening out loud in front of a mirror. Not in your head. I want you to do it out loud. I want you to make sure that you're smiling while you're doing it. Stand up if that helps. If you struggle doing that when you're in a chair, stand up. Speak with confidence. And then, after every call, I want you to ask yourself one question. If I were the prospect, would I have stayed on the phone? But I want you to answer it honestly. If that answer is yes, keep doing what you're doing. Keep improving. But if the answer is no, I want you to figure out why. Because that's how growth happens. One honest evaluation at a time. I truly believe that if you'll commit to improving your opening over the next week, over the next 7 days, you will notice a difference. Maybe you're going to book one extra appointment every single day. Maybe you're going to save 2 conversations that would have ended the week before. Maybe you're simply going to feel more confident. And that confidence has a crazy way of creating momentum. And that momentum will create consistency. And that consistency will create production. And that production creates that freedom that most agents are chasing. So as we close today's episode, I want you to remember something. The first 30 seconds don't determine whether somebody buys. They determine whether someone listens. Because if you can earn the next 30 seconds, you'll earn the opportunity to build trust. And when you build trust, you'll earn the opportunity to solve your client's problem. And when you consistently solve problems, well, success will take care of itself. I want to thank you for spending part of your day with me here on Life with Brian, the Six Figure Agent podcast. If this episode helped you to become a better agent, a professional salesperson, I'll ask you to do 2 things. First, I want you to subscribe so you're not missing the future episodes. The second is I want you to share this episode with another agent who could use a little encouragement and a practical strategy to improve their phone calls. Because as I said, my mission is simple. I want to help more agents become true professionals. I want to help more agents serve more families. I want to help them build businesses that give them the freedom that they've been chasing. Next week, we're going to talk about a topic that might make some people uncomfortable, but it needs to be talked about. We're going to discuss while some agents succeed with the exact same leads that other agents call garbage. We're going to cover how follow-up creates fortune, how to build a pipeline that produces consistent income month after month. It's one you are not going to want to miss. So until next week, I want you to remember, protect your mindset, protect your schedule, master your opening, keep improving every single day, and never forget the next conversation you have could be the one that changes someone's life and your own.